Hi, this is Chris with Nightfall Audiobooks, and today I have for you Goodnight Kiss from the Super Chiller series. I remember reading this quite a lot when I was a kid. When I got it, my little sister was getting into books, and she was asking me about it because I tended to read this like every summer because it was the quintessential summer novel. It's about 200 pages. It's pretty long for an R.L. Stine novel. The cover is bright orange with a girl in a bikini and blood dripping down her neck and a bat, and she's like, "What is this all about? What's going on?" So I began to read to her, and I read to her April's parts, and I was being all dramatic and silly and trying to get her to get interested in reading. So that was really, really fun. But there's an issue with this book, and it's a personal issue, and that is the vampires run around trying to find kids to drink their blood, but they don't call it blood, they call it nectar. And it always bugged me, and I don't understand why R.L. Stine made that change from blood to nectar. He wrote Dangerous Girls 1 and 2, and he had no problem saying blood in those books. And look at Fear Street. It's dripping with blood. It's everywhere. You can get decapitated, animals die, your hand mangled in a garbage disposal, and he will say blood all day long in those books, but not in Goodnight Kiss. It's just weird. So I put a poll up on YouTube asking if it was okay if just this one time, if I made a change for the better. A lot of people voted, and everyone said, yeah, go right ahead and change the word nectar to the word blood. If you read this off the shelf, and you see the word nectar in the novel, and you hear the word blood in my production, you'll know that that was an artistic change that I made because I felt that it should have been made. I've been recording books for this channel for almost 3 years now, and I have not made a change like this yet. In fact, if the book has something weird written down and there's a typo, because those do happen, I will read it as a typo appears. Wow, I haven't opened this book in so long. For it being as used as I read it when I was a kid, it's in a really good condition. The cover that you see is my cover of my copy of this novel. Thank you very much for voting in this poll, and thank you for allowing me to make this artistic change from nectar to blood just this one time. I really can't wait to get this started, so let's begin. If you want to get in touch with me, you can write me an email, nightfallaudiobooks@gmail.com. I'm also on YouTube at Nightfall Audiobooks. Feel free to like, comment, and subscribe, and hit the join button to show your support. Any help is greatly appreciated. I really do mean that. I also have a Patreon page, patreon.com/nightfallaudiobooks. So tell your friends, tell your mom, tell whoever you think would like to listen to me tell them tales from R.L. Stine. Thank you very much for listening, and let's begin. Welcome to a Nightfall Audiobooks production of Goodnight Kiss by R.L. Stine, a Fear Street Super Chiller, Book 3. Part 1. Chapter 1. Jessica's sandals clonked over the wood planks of the walk as she made her way quickly past the small shops and restaurants. She stopped in front of the Beach Emporium, the largest clothing store in Sandy Hollow, and peered into the window. A hand-painted sign read, "Bikinis half off." Jessica chuckled to herself. Was that meant to be a joke? No. Mrs. Hopping, the quiet old woman whose family had owned the Beach Emporium for 100 years, had no sense of humor. She was a stern, unfriendly woman who smiled only when punching down the buttons on her old-fashioned cash register to ring up a big sale. Mrs. Hopping will soon be smiling a lot, Jessica thought. Just beyond town, Beach Haven Drive was already clogged with cars as the summer people were arriving to open up their beach houses. In a few days, the white-skinned tourists would be lying on the sand all day, soaking up the rays, then jamming the tiny town at night, all pink and sweaty, eager to party and shop, shop, shop. Jessica let her eyes roam over the bathing suits in the window. A very bright orange bikini caught the light. It probably glows in the dark, Jessica realized, rolling her eyes. How tacky. The sun had disappeared behind the low, shingle and clapboard buildings along Main Street. The evening air carried a chill from the ocean to the east. Loud voices and laughter rang out from the Pizza Cove restaurant across the street. It's exciting, Jessica thought. A new summer, a new season, new people. Sweeping her thick mane of copper-colored hair back behind the shoulders of her black cotton sweater, she pushed open the door to the shop. The bell on the door jangled as Jessica stepped inside. She was surprised that Mrs. Hopping was not at her usual perch behind the jewelry counter. The shop smelled of sweet spices, clove and cinnamon, the fragrance wafting from a display of potpourri. I'll bet that's a big seller, Jessica thought, picking up a sachet and holding it close to her face to smell it. The summer people would do anything to get the musty, mildewy smells from their houses. She headed past the bathing suits and beach cover-ups to the racks of colorful summer skirts, tops, and sundresses against the wall. I need something sexy but not obvious, she thought, pulling out and immediately rejecting a red and yellow flower print skirt with matching midriff top. Before she could look any further, she heard footsteps on the wood floor, and a voice from behind her called out a cheery hello. Jessica turned, surprised to see Lucy Franks, a girl she'd known for years, another townie. They exchanged greetings. "Are you working here?" Jessica asked, her eyes returning to the dress rack. "Yeah, just evenings," Lucy replied brightly. "Town is filling up. I'm glad." "Me too," Jessica said, holding up a maroon top. "Not your color," Lucy said helpfully. Then she added, "Your hair's so great. Mine's always a mess. It curls up because it's so damp here." "The damp air is good for your skin," Jessica said, pushing the maroon top back into place, then moving her hand down the rack. Jessica's skin was pale and flawlessly smooth and creamy white, her best feature. The almost translucent skin contrasted with her dark brown eyes and her full red lips. The long cascades of red hair framed her high cheekbones and made Jessica appear very dramatic, very sophisticated. "It's so nice to see people in town," Lucy said, straightening a stack of oversized t-shirts. "Sandy Hollow is so boring in the winter." "Yeah, it's like living in the Antarctic or something," Jessica agreed. "What are you doing this summer?" Lucy asked. "Just hanging out, I guess," Jessica told her. "What do you think of this?" She held up a short navy blue sundress with a halter top. "Well, what are you looking for?" Lucy asked, giving the t-shirts one last pat and walking up to Jessica. "Something a little dressy?" "Not too dressy," Jessica said thoughtfully, holding the sundress up. "I have a blind date tomorrow night." Lucy giggled. "A blind date? Wow, do people still do that?" Jessica's dark eyes lit up. "I sort of got talked into it. You know, a friend of a friend said there's this really nice guy, and—" "What's his name?" Lucy asked. "Do I know him?" "Gabriel Martins," Jessica replied. "Everyone calls him Gabry." Lucy shook her head. "Don't know him." She took the navy blue sundress from Jessica and studied it. "Try it on. It'll probably look fabulous on you. You're so tall and have such great long legs. You really look like a model." Jessica laughed. "Lucy, you really know how to make a sale." Lucy blushed. "No, I mean it, Jessica, really." She handed it back, and Jessica hurried to the dressing room to try it on. She scrambled out of her jeans and sweater and pulled the sundress on. It fit perfectly. "There's a mirror out here if you need it," Lucy called. "That's okay. It fits great," Jessica called out. A few minutes later, having bought the dress, she waved goodbye to Lucy and headed out onto Main Street. Across the street, some teenagers were piling into the Pizza Cove. Next door, the mini-market was crowded with shoppers choosing food to stock their houses. Cars honked as drivers looked for parking places on the narrow street. "Summer, here I come," Jessica thought happily, gripping her plastic shopping bag tightly as she crossed Main Street, mission accomplished, and headed for home. Gabriel Martins was tall and very thin, with a pale, narrow face, straight black hair swept back from his forehead, intense black eyes, and a broad, friendly smile that didn't seem to belong on such a serious face. "He's really good-looking," Jessica thought, as he approached in his black denim jeans and pale blue t-shirt, stepping under the flickering lights of the marquee of the Harbor Palace, the town's only movie theater. The smile on his face seemed to indicate that he liked Jessica's looks as well. She had arrived at the theater first, feeling nervous and uncertain. "How will I even know which one he is?" she wondered. As a line of laughing, chattering summer people filed into the theater, Jessica waited under the marquee, nervously straightening her new sundress, asking herself why she let herself be talked into a blind date. After a while, she realized she was the only one still waiting. The movie must have started, she told herself, glancing at the big clock outside the mini-market. Gabriel isn't even going to show up. But then he stepped under the marquee lights and flashed her his open, friendly smile, and her nervousness melted away. "Sorry I'm late," he said, taking her arm and guiding her inside. It was dark and warm inside the theater and smelled of cats and mildew. Jessica stumbled in the aisle, her eyes adjusting slowly to the darkness. Gabriel caught her before she fell. Good move, Jessica, she scolded herself. Way to make a good impression. Now he knows you're a clumsy ox. They sat in the back row. Jessica found herself glancing at Gabriel every few seconds, too distracted to concentrate on the movie. His dark eyes glowed in the flickering light of the movie screen. His expression remained serious, even though the movie was a comedy. About halfway through the film, he leaned close to her and whispered, "Do you like this movie?" "Not really," she answered honestly. "Let's go," he said, standing up immediately, smiling reassuringly at her. A few seconds later, they were back outside. The air smelled fresh and salty. Narrow wisps of dark cloud snaked across a full moon hung low in the sky, so low it seemed to hover over the shingled roof of the darkened barber shop across the street. Swanee's, the ice cream parlor and video game arcade next to the movie theater, was packed with young people. A line had formed outside the outdoor takeout window, people standing in clusters of 2 and 4, talking and laughing as they waited for cones and milkshakes. "Want to get something?" Gabriel asked, pointing to the line. Jessica shook her head. "Not unless you want to." "Why don't we check out the beach?" he said. "It'll be quieter. We can talk." His dark eyes seemed to capture hers. As she stared back at him, she felt hypnotized by him. Okay, she finally replied, forcing herself to snap out of it. He must think I'm a real jerk, she thought glumly. I'm usually so self-assured, so confident. Why do I feel so awkward, so unsure of myself with him? They walked along Dune Lane, which meandered from town across the tall, grassy dunes down to the beach. It was a short walk, about 10 minutes. The low, bright moon with its shadowy wisps of cloud seemed to move with them, leading the way. After sliding down the dune, they took their shoes off and stacked them beside a clump of grass. The sand felt cold and soft and wet under Jessica's feet. She slid her toes in, enjoying the sensation, enjoying the fresh, salty air, enjoying the white moon that sent a trembling path of light across the billowing ocean waves, enjoying sharing it all with someone new. She took a deep breath, closing her eyes. "It smells so clean," she said happily, wrapping her bare arms around her chest as if hugging herself. "Are you cold?" Gabriel asked, his voice suddenly concerned. She opened her eyes to see him staring at her. "I like your dress," he said. "I just thought you might be cold. She shook her head. "Know what I feel like doing? I feel like running." Before he could reply, she took off, running along the shore, her bare feet kicking up clumps of wet sand, the rush of the waves in her ears, the ocean wind lifting her coppery hair. It took her a while to realize that Gabriel was right beside her, matching her stride for stride, moving over the sand as effortlessly as she. His dark eyes searched out hers, his arms outstretched as if he were about to take flight. She turned and headed away from the water, her feet pounding the sand. He soared with her, grinning, staying at her side, now a step behind, now a step ahead. Without a signal, they both plunged headfirst onto the soft grassy dune, tumbling together happily, both laughing as if they were little children, rolling in the sand, the high grass soft against their skin. When they finally stood up, still laughing, not the slightest bit out of breath, brushing sand from their clothes, he took her hands, and pulled her close. He looked so handsome under the low, low moon. She knew he was going to kiss her. She wanted him to. He didn't say a word. He didn't have to. Those dark, intense eyes, so serious, so hypnotic, those eyes said it all. And before she realized it, his arms were around her. His face drew close, closer. She stared into his eyes and once again came under their spell. And then she saw his mouth open, and the pointed fangs emerged, so bright and sharp, sparkling in the moonlight. Gently, so gently, Gabriel tilted her chin up, and dug his fangs deeply into her pale, tender throat. Chapter 2. Jessica groaned. She raised her hands to Gabriel's shoulders and shoved him away. "Hey," he cried out, startled by her strength. His fangs still gleamed in the shadowy moonlight. "You idiot," Jessica snarled, pushing him again. "I'm an eternal one, too." "Huh?" Gabriel took a step back, bewildered. Jessica's eyes widened, glowing red embers against the darkness. Her fangs lowered, curling down toward her chin. She laughed scornfully. "Idiot," she repeated, shaking her head, her long, thick hair swinging behind her. "Well, how was I to know?" Gabriel asked angrily, his features tightening in a dark scowl. The light faded from Jessica's eyes. "I bought a new dress and everything," she muttered. "Well, why didn't you say something?" Gabriel asked, crossing his slender arms in front of himself. "What was I supposed to say?" she cried heatedly. "Hello, nice to meet you. I'm an eternal one. How about you?" He groaned and kicked at the sand, avoiding her stare. A blind date, Jessica muttered. I should have known better than to go on a blind date with a townie. You wasted my whole night, he said peevishly, his arms still crossed. Boo-hoo, she replied nastily. Break my heart, why don't you? You really are pitiful, you know. Is that how you do it all the time? Have someone arrange blind dates with poor unsuspecting girls? You're too pitiful to get a date on your own? Why don't you shut your fangs? Gabriel snapped, staring out over the water. I'm not the pitiful one. You're the one who agreed to go on the blind date. I can't believe you, acting so sweet and innocent. Jessica laughed. I am sweet, she insisted, and then she added coyly, but it's too late for you to find that out. Gabriel uttered a cry of disgust. But I need the blood, he cried, turning to her. Without the blood, I'll perish. Where'd you get that line? Out of an old horror movie? Jessica choked, shaking her head. She repeated it in a high-pitched, desperate voice, imitating him meanly. Without the blood, I'll perish. You're not funny, you're pitiful, he said softly. Really. The wispy cloud trailed away from the moon, and the beach brightened as if someone had turned on a light. In the white light, Gabriel aged 100 years. He has a teenager's face, like mine, Jessica thought, studying him, but his skin is so pale and brittle, stretched so tightly over his bones, and in the light his eyes are old, ancient and evil. Listen, Gabriel, Jessica said, softening her tone a bit. I need the blood too, you know. It's been a long, cold winter here. She pushed her hair back over her shoulders as a group of teenagers, carrying drink coolers and boogie boards, walked past. One of the boys, a straggler, stopped to stare long and hard at her before hurrying to catch up to the group. Guess this dress isn't bad, Jessica said, smoothing the front of it with both hands. Her eyes followed the boy who had stared at her. Fresh blood, she said hungrily. Fresh blood, Gabriel repeated in a low voice that barely carried over the wind. Fresh blood all up and down the beach, and I end up with you. Sucker, Jessica said. He scowled again. Idiot, that was a joke, she cried, shoving him playfully into the dune. Don't you even have a sense of humor? Don't shove me again, he warned, his tone turning menacing. He seemed to float up from the sand, weightless like a kite, and hovered over her. I don't have a sense of humor, not where the blood is concerned. Back off, will you? She yelled. I don't care if you're an eternal one or not. You're the biggest jerk I've ever met. He stared at her coldly, as if trying to decide how to react to her, as if trying to decide what to do to her. He's trying to frighten me, Jessica thought. Well, he's got a surprise coming. He can stare at me all he wants. I don't scare easily, and if he tries anything, I'll slash him to pieces. She and Gabriel slid into the shadows as two boys walked by their dune. The boys were hurrying to join a group of kids who had started a small bonfire down the beach. Fresh blood, Gabriel said, his voice a whisper. Maybe it isn't too late. Maybe I haven't wasted the whole night with you. What are you going to do? She asked, not even trying to keep the mockery from her voice. Try to get another blind date? He ignored her. I need the blood, he whispered, not bothering to hide his desperation. I need it. Then, raising his arms above his head, he began to spin. Clouds drifted over the moon, casting the dunes in total darkness. The ocean roar picked up. The wind swirled in wide circles. Invisible in the dark, swaying dunes, Gabriel spun. When the clouds drifted away and the pale light filtered down again, and the ocean hushed and the wind calmed, he emerged as a bat, purple and black. The dark animal eyes stared down at Jessica with the same intensity, the animal mouth open, revealing pointed fangs covered in white drool. He hissed at her, swooped at her face, forcing her to stumble backward and shield herself with her arms. Then, still hissing, up he fluttered until he disappeared against the black sky. Seconds later, Jessica was spinning in the tall grass. Moments after that, she fluttered up to join her winged companion in the sky. I'm so thirsty, so thirsty. I need the blood too, she thought. I need the blood. I need it so badly. Monica Davis carried her sandals as she walked, her feet sinking into the wet sand, studying the rippling light on the ocean as the clouds moved across the moon. Her friend, Ellie Porter, bent to pick up a smooth white stone, then skipped it across the water. I'm cold, Ellie complained, jogging rapidly to catch up, her knees high, as if that would keep her warm. Feels good, Monica said, closing her eyes, ocean spray clinging to her curly blonde hair. I'm just glad to get away from the cottage, she added, picking up her face, enjoying the sound her feet made squishing over the sand. When did you get here? Ellie asked, turning to face her friend, walking backward, the wind fluttering her oversized t-shirt. Late last night, Monica replied, and of course Dad threw a fit, he always does. What was it this time? 2 of the screens were torn, and there was some kind of bug nest in the house. Wasps, I think. So he started ranting and raving about how we're paying all this money for a summer house. The least the owner can do is make sure the screens aren't torn. Poor Dad, Monica said, shaking her head. He's just so stressed out. It always takes him a month to unwind, and by that time, she stopped suddenly. Ellie stopped too, and followed her friend's gaze up to the blue-black sky. Oh, Ellie cried out, grabbing Monica's arm. Are those bats? Monica let out a silent gasp as the 2 dark forms hovered above. Their wings flapped like bedsheets on a clothesline. Run! Ellie screamed, pulling Monica's arm. Monica held back. The beach is full of bats at night, she told her friend, keeping her eyes on the 2 hovering forms. They live on that island over there, see? She pointed to a dark, wooded island out in the ocean, beyond a small dock, its outlines visible against the purple horizon. Do people live on the island? Ellie asked. It's completely dark. I think there used to be some beach houses there, Monica replied, but you can only get to the island by boat. I don't think there are any people left, only bats. They're so creepy, Ellie said close to Monica, her eyes trained on the 2 bats that seemed to be flying together. They flutter around, Monica said softly, but they're harmless. As she said that, one of the bats plunged toward Ellie. Ellie didn't have time to move or cry out. She saw gleaming red eyes, heard the hiss of wind, a shrill whistle, a screech of attack. She felt it grab her hair. She felt it brush her face, hot and wet, hairy, sticky. It scratched her. It beat its wings against her cheek. Help me, she shrieked. Oh, Monica, please help. Chapter 3. Help, Monica! Frantically waving her arms, Ellie tried to beat away the attacker. Monica hesitated for a second, horrified by the struggle, then lunged forward to help her friend. As she moved toward Ellie, the second bat swooped down. Monica cried out and raised her hands to shield herself. She could feel a cold rush of air as the creature darted past her. Then, to Monica's surprise, the second bat appeared to attack the first, flying at it, pushing it with its wings, hissing at it, bumping it away from Ellie. Screeching its anger, the first bat resisted the attack, but the second bat, its red eyes aflame, snapped and swooped until it pushed the first one away. And then, as both girls stared open-mouthed, their hands still held up protectively in front of their faces, the 2 bats lifted up into the darkness and disappeared over the dunes. Are you okay? Monica cried, rushing to hug her friend. Ellie was trembling all over. Her skin was cold and hard with goosebumps. I think so, she whispered uncertainly. Let's go, Monica said. They began to run back toward the cluster of beach houses at the north end of the beach. The whole struggle had taken less than 10 seconds, Monica realized. But it was 10 seconds she would like to forget. What's with those bats anyway, she wondered, studying the inky black sky as she ran. On the south end of the beach, beyond the clusters of beach houses, beyond the grassy dunes, a tall rock cliff jutted out over the ocean, leaning into the water as if trying to reach the dark, wooded island across from it. In the shadow of this granite cliff, deserted and silent except for the relentless wash of waves against the shore, 2 bats descended to where sand met rock. Whirling furiously in the sand, they transformed themselves and stepped out to confront each other as humans, a boy and a girl. What is your problem? Gabriel demanded, glaring at Jessica and thrusting his hands angrily on his hips. I had no choice, she replied heatedly, standing her ground. But I'm so thirsty, he declared. 1 sip? No, she said firmly. It's none of your business, he started. She tossed her long hair behind her with a sharp snap of her head. Did you see how crowded the beach was? She asked. Did you see how many people were watching? She didn't give him a chance to reply. Do you want to have everyone terrified before summer even begins? Use your brain, Gabriel, or has that dried up too? Then she smiled as she made a joke. You give vampires a bad name. He snarled furiously at her, a frightening animal sound. His fangs curled down on his chin. Jessica didn't back away. One stupid attack like that, and all the fresh blood could be scared away. The town could close the beach until the bat problem was solved. He turned away angrily, unwilling to admit that she was right, that he had acted foolishly. She was so soft and ripe, he muttered. You're a jerk, Jessica said. Have I mentioned that before? He kept his back to her and stared up at the rock sloping up to the cliff. I'm sick of your insults, he hissed bitterly. That wasn't an insult. It was a compliment, she joked. Angry, he spun around to face her, his features tight with fury. How old are you? He demanded. Huh? Her full lips formed an O of surprise. Old enough to know more than you, she replied, laughing, pleased at her own smugness. His eyes continued to burn into hers. She tried to look away, but he held her with his stare. You really think you're hot stuff, don't you? She nodded. You really think you're better than me? She nodded again. Again she tried to turn away from him, but the powerful hold of his stare was too overwhelming. They stared at each other in silence for what seemed a long time, locked together by ancient invisible forces. How would you feel about a little challenge? He asked finally. A challenge? She felt herself pulled toward him, pulled against her will. A bet, he said, a smile slowly forming on his handsome face. I'll win, she said flatly, her face expressionless, only her eyes alive. The smile faded quickly from his face. No, you won't. You will lose. What's the bet? She asked softly, drawn toward him, caught in his grip, a prisoner of his eyes. Do you want to bet on the Red Sox? He didn't laugh. I hate your sense of humor, he said heatedly. Jealous, she accused, and then screamed, Stop staring at me, Gabri. To her relief, he obediently averted his eyes, but the curve of a smile on his face revealed that he enjoyed having power over her. Do you want to hear the bet or not? He asked sharply. Sure. She moved beside him and leaned back against a sloping rock. It felt cool against her back, soothing. We both need the blood, he said, reaching up and sliding his fingers through her long hair. We need it so badly. Cut to the chase, Jessica said sharply. Ignoring her impatience, he continued to comb her hair with his long, slender fingers. Why not see which of us is better at getting the blood? His fingers moved slowly, rhythmically through her hair, giving her chills. Why not see which of us is more successful with the young humans? Which of us is more attractive, more appealing? She shuddered, then grabbed his arm, gently pulling his hand from her hair. What are you suggesting, Gabri? She asked, not releasing his arm. I will get a girl within my power before you can get a boy to succumb to you, Gabri said, his entire face lighting up with a challenge. Jessica's eyes expressed disgust. You mean you will fly onto the beach and attack a girl before I can attack a boy, like that disgusting babyish display you put on tonight? He squeezed her hand. No, no, he said softly, not like that. 3 sips, Jessica. 3 small, measured sips on 3 different nights. That's what it takes to turn a human into an eternal one. Take too big a drink, and the human dies. 3 small, measured sips, and the human lives forever, as we do. So, what are you suggesting? Jessica asked, becoming more interested. Are you saying that you will choose a girl, a living girl, and take 3 sips on 3 different nights, and change her into an eternal one? Yes, he agreed excitedly. I will do that before you can do the same to a boy. What do you say, Jessica? Do you accept the challenge? She closed her eyes and shook her head. No. No, why not? It's too easy, she replied, a mischievous smile forming on her full lips. I'd win too quickly. You're no competition. By the time you arrange the blind date, I'd have my victim in my power. She tossed her head back and laughed. Gabriel stuck his tongue out at her. That's what I think of you. You're all talk, Jessica. You're afraid to compete with me. You know that girls can't resist me. I can resist you, she replied, crossing her arms over her chest. Then why don't you accept my challenge? She reached out and playfully squeezed his chin. Don't get all pushed out of shape, Gabriel, honey, she teased. I just want to make the bet a little more even. Give you a tiny chance to win. He jerked his chin from her grasp and uttered an exasperated groan. Jessica snapped her fingers. I've got it. This'll make our little bet more interesting. He turned his eyes to hers. Well, you select the boy I'm to work on, okay? She said, pleased with her inspiration. You select my victim, Gabri, and I will select yours. Yes, he cried. Excellent. Before they realized it, they were spinning together, whirling with the wind beneath the smooth, steep rock cliff, whirling together, and then rising apart, rising into the dark sky, soaring high, then diving low over the beach, still dotted with groups of young people. Tender young people, Jessica thought hungrily, swooping low and hovering. Tender young people. Fluttering just high enough not to frighten them, she studied their full, happy faces, and tingled with excitement.